welcome. I'd like to start this video with a confession. I wasn't exactly a man of fine arts, where I spend my hours in a museum looking over some painting. It wasn't because I found them boring or pointless, really. It's because artwork simply did not resonate with me enough for me to become infatuated with a painting in the first place. However, one painting changed that some time ago. One painting made me feel something, not content, nor sorrow, neither fear. Instead, it was the feeling of mystery. The feeling of staring into something and pondering for long why it is there, and why am I finding so many things that I had failed to notice on a previous glance. That painting, ladies and gentlemen, and those in between, is Isle of the Dead by Arnold Boekman. An island for the dead to forever rest in, their fate sealed in its greenery and mysterious architecture. A boat tries to rest its anchor in the shores of this island, midday or midnight, depending on whichever version you look at. On this boat is a stranger dressed in a white robe that stands out easily with its menacing pose, as if it's feeling the sorrow of they who are in black next to them. In front of those two is what appears to be a box covered with a white sheet and covered with flowers. It's no secret that this box is a coffin of someone on their way to the Isle of the Dead. The story of this painting will forever be a mystery that intrigues me, as it is also related to the mystery of 1112. Make a wish! Wrong number. What in the world does this painting have to do with a 4-digit number that is a ripoff of another 4-digit number that grants wishes? Let me explain. In the early 90s, businessmen who played on their Nintendo Game Boy devices wanted a much more sleek, compact, and convenient portable companion for their everyday life. So what did computer companies think to do? Invent an alternative, duh! Though it wasn't sleek when it began its run, the personal digital assistant was born to help those who are in the business fields to organize their mails, hold their daily planners and organizers, perform quick calculations, and hold their notes. It was acronymed into PDA for convenience, and was even adopted into classroom settings for the ease of communication. Most PDAs at the time utilized what was known as Palm OS. This was the standard operating system that was used at the time until it met its rival, the Windows Mobile. The OS Microsoft came up with for their own line of PDA system, the Pocket PC. Like all PDA devices, the Pocket PC could do all, but with the added feature that it could utilize the Windows Live Messenger, or what we 2000s kids know as MSN. What it had also attracted so many bored people of the business class. What was that? Entertainment! Of course it was entertainment! How could you forget that, Paul? Yes, the Pocket PC allowed you to install games you buy from developers on the internet and install it on your Pocket PC via Microsoft's program ActiveSync. The games were all simple games one can play to pass the time, as they were meant for mature audiences. You know, games like poker, blackjack, mini-golf, Madden 05, and Quake. You know, all big boy games, yep. All of these games/ports had served their ultimate purpose, to be cash grabs that wasted the time of a poor businessman on his way home, so that he doesn't fiddle with a calculator. But what if I tell you there's a hidden gem in the Pocket PC's library? The Pocket PC made way to an independent development team who sought the opportunity to make their ambition into reality. That team was simply called Fate Team. Their entire purpose was to develop the Pocket PC's first adventure game, eponymously called Fade. Fade was a 2001 point-and-click adventure game, released exclusively for the Pocket PC, utilizing its touchscreen technology for the entirety of the game. I would go into the details of the plot, but why would I? Just kidding. I'll get to it later, promise. The game launched into a success within its niche medium of Pocket PC games, selling well enough to encourage the team into releasing 2 more games for the platform. Acid Dior, which was set in the Middle Ages and was released for the Palm OS, and a card game called Exit Nights. After doing the deed, Fate Team disbanded and all decided to go on working adult jobs, who became the businessmen who needed the entertainment. Now, you might not be wondering who Fate Team were, and believe me, neither do I, because they went with nicknames in the credits sequence. Their leader is a man I look up to, Alexandre Leboucher. The rest of the members that I managed to find out were coders Loac Gil and Frank Zanders, as well as 3D artist Adi Moussa. Leboucher and his college buddies decided to work on a side project during their free time to publish on their own website and make a few bucks for their hard work at their shared residence. When they were done with college and were offered jobs, they took it and went on to professionally work on game development. Fate Team moved on to work for the now defunct company Étranger Libellule, or Strange Dragonflies in English. This company's most notable product was 2008's Pyro Dawn of the Dragon. The game wasn't exactly the best performing game out there, sadly, so members of Strange Dragonflies decided to quit the studio and form their own. Who formed this rebellion, you wonder? It was Leboucher himself, as he saw no future with that studio. Alexandre Leboucher got the support of artists Valerian Taramon, coder Aurélien Kerbecki, and 3D modeler Jed. He was capable of starting his own team he had called Agartha Studios, based on the kingdom of Agartha, located on the bottom of the earth in French lore. Agartha Studios decided on going back to the basics and rework Fade into a more modern platform with a redone aesthetic to fit that of the early 2000s. At first, they decided to go with a Nintendo DS as their platform of choice. And mind you, they were doing all of this internally while still working for Strange Dragonflies, so sadly they could not get past the home emulator stage, and only a few concept arts remained of the Nintendo DS port. There was also the issue of making the game work with both screens, as they wanted to fully utilize the system's capabilities. After the team was officially formed, a new mobile phone was on the quick rise to popularity, a device known to man today as the influencer phone. Okay, that didn't click, I meant the iPhone. Anyways, the iPhone was unveiled to be the ultimate successor to PDAs, as it now features a full capacitive touchscreen, 8 to 32 gigabytes of storage, and was later upgraded to feature a store where games can be published by Apple themselves. Agartha took the opportunity, decided to remake Fade for the Apple iPhone, and to make use of its many features, including portrait mode and the multi-touch. When making the game, they decided to rebrand Fade into what we know today as 1112.
About one day she's back in her old room. About 2 days she's not in the bloom of youth. About 3 days waiting for his skin so smooth. About 4 days he can't sleep a wink. I don't ask for the moon.
Now I can finally get into the plot of the game, and I won't spare you guys the detail here because we're finally at the meat of this video, alright? I played the entirety of the game on my iDevice, so here we go. The game starts off with the nightmare Lewis experiences every single night. Every night, Lewis falls to the ground and finds himself in a crowd of people. In that crowd is his wife Anna, clearly shouting at him, asking him to wake up. Back in reality, and after shutting off his alarm, Lewis moves on to speak to his wife Anna. Right off the bat, you will notice Anna lighting a cigarette and looking through the window. In both his and her character descriptions, Lewis will note that there are some marital problems between the two, but reassures himself that all will be solved and all will be fine. When he speaks to Anna, you'll notice that she has much to say and even more going on in her mind. Let's move on to their first conversation. The first thing they talk about are plans for today, to which she says she will go on her daily routine and then pay a visit to her friend named Astrid, much to Lewis's dismay and disapproval of this Astrid. But she claims that she's helping her reach new plateaus and discover new things about herself. Lewis then moves on to mention that he still gets morning headaches after the nightmares he experiences. Anna says that his nightmares are certainly caused by his abuse of the drug Valix, sorta like Valium in real life, which he values so much that he puts in his safe and locks it away inside. Notably, she mentions that his nightmares might be premonitory. Then she shrugs it off when he further inquires. When he playfully asked her if she still loved him, probably a reference to their marriage issues, she'll say that she still does and she hopes he sees it through to the end. What is the end? We do not know. After finishing up the conversation and finally getting his meds into his system, Anna goes on to take her daily bath. But a few seconds later, she yells for help, asking him to turn on the boiler, which broke down once again. When inquired about why she takes daily baths, she'll just say that every morning she feels unclean, that her legs are numb, and adds that a hot bath is what does the trick for her. The couple continues their discussion in their kitchen while having breakfast. Anna begins the conversation by pointing out that they don't have much time to eat since he has a very important client to meet today. We learn that Anna runs a small local grocery store, in addition to her having a smoking addiction. Lewis calls her out on that, to which then she retaliates to saying that it's helping her calm down, amidst her internal storm that is figuring herself out. Yeah, right. Lewis doesn't buy into what she says, and says that he will need to talk to his best friend, who doubles as her supplier, John, about this issue. It should be noted that in the 1112 universe, alcohol, smoking, and religious practice are strictly forbidden, and anybody caught will be subjected to severe sanctions. Lewis mentions that New York City saw a massive wave of arrests a while ago, and Anna adds that they are the only people fighting for their freedom, and that Lewis will come to understand them eventually. Lewis comments that coffee is a source of happiness for Anna, to which she replies to that, saying Lewis will need to face reality, in turn estranging the man. It's time to go now, and as Lewis was preparing to leave, he receives a call from his secretary Felicity, who reminds him vehemently that he needs to compile a file for the high-end client he'll receive today, Mr. Goodman from New York. Lewis completes the file and goes to the car only to find Anna frantically searching around. She tells Lewis that she can't find neither the car keys nor her cell phone. It turns out she forgot them in the bathroom when she was taking a bath. Lewis goes to retrieve her lost items and Anna's cell phone beeps with a notification for a message from a man named Anthony, telling her to meet him at the exit. Strange. At their town, Jaylansville, Felicity will ask Lewis to pick up her usual drug, Dratilla 50 milligrams, which is a reference to the drug Dogmatil, from the local pharmacy run by Don. Before he gets the chance to go in there, a strange, obviously intoxicated man asks Lewis if he has a cigarette on him, but Lewis finds him so repulsive, so he decides to ignore him. Don will tell Lewis that he sold the last box of Dratilla to the stranger that we had encountered earlier. A little tidbit about the medicine circulation being fully controlled by the government is thrown, but not expanded much upon. The stranger will ask of Lewis to get him cigarettes in exchange for the meds, and states that he is against the government's bans. Knowing that Anna has the cigarettes, Lewis goes to her store and asks her for some. And, unsurprisingly, she refuses. Lewis will call Anna out on Anthony, but she shrugs it off, saying it was spam. When he tells her about the stranger, she points out that she doesn't like it when he judges people that rub him off the wrong way. When asked about Goodman, she'll tell him that she had a bad premonition about him. She got it from Astrid, she says. And that he will be the one who will ruin the balance of Lewis's life. Girl, I don't know who you talk to. But okay. Lewis searches for cigarettes at the other possible source, which is the bar Orlando right next to him. The bar is quite dead after the prohibition happened. It is owned by a friend of Lewis named Todd. Todd opens up the conversation by saying that John was asking about Lewis, claiming he had something urgent to talk to him about, in turn bewildering Lewis into wondering why the urgency if they were going to meet up regardless. Todd will reveal to Lewis that he is in love with, and he says it reluctantly, by the way, Felicity. Todd will ask Lewis to get him an ass shot of Felicity in exchange for the cigarettes. And Lewis, indeed, does what he was asked to do. No harm in doing what she wants, I suppose. After getting her meds, she's still not satisfied and asks for coffee that needs to be served to Goodman. Lewis sadly has no cash, so Todd says he can give him coffee in exchange for yummy photos of Anna. One beat down later, Felicity gets her coffee and is finally willing to talk. Do note though that her conversation is completely optional. When meeting Goodman, he will insist on seeing a certain painting that Lewis owned, called Isle of the Dead. And asks Lewis to show him proof that he really owns it. In order to not disappoint his best client, Lewis decides to head back home and take a picture of the painting he has at home. But, before he could go, Anna calls him and asks him urgently to get her notebook where she keeps all the store records in. At the store, Anna will point out that she has a weird imbalance in her bank account, and that there is way much more money than she remembers, weirdly enough. At the shop, Goodman will say that he was told by somebody that the painting was indeed at Lewis's house, much to our confusion. When Goodman begins to explain himself, though, this happens. To be continued. Episode 1 on the surface might seem small, but it is jam-packed full of things for the player to discover if they wish to enrich their knowledge of the character and the world built around them. There's a feature in the dialogue tree that allows you to summon a keyboard where you can type in certain keywords to which characters will respond to in many different ways, kinda like Fallout 1's dialogue tree. The three with the most interesting responses are Anna, Dawn, and the stranger. It's obvious that Anna is the highlight character of this episode. She keeps herself mysterious while fully being capable of deterring Lewis from further inquiring about literally anything. In the hidden conversation, she will mention that she dislikes life in New York and prefers New Jersey much more, a possible cause for the rift they had been experiencing. She also mentions that she dislikes Don very much due to him selling Lewis the Valix and because of his quote-unquote family. When you speak to Don, he will praise New Jersey for valuing quote-unquote family. He will move on to threaten Lewis to never mess with Todd, who's a member of his quote-unquote family. He will also reveal that he is a taxidermist by night, and he will creepily openly mention that Lewis's car fits rolled carpets and cement bags, as well as mentioning that Lewis's office at his home is yet to be completed. That implies that Don is a part of an organized crime group and should not be messed with. If you talk to Todd about the bar, he will say that he has no competition whatsoever. Lewis will mention that there was indeed another bar before Todd arrived into town, possibly implying an involvement by the quote-unquote family. Now let's move on to the stranger. That guy is a massive can of worms who will reveal so much if you give him a little nudge. The stranger is one called Alex Was Here, a 31-year-old man from New York City. When you cuss at him, he will reveal the most interesting stuff. When you say ass, he will tell you that a bunch of gentlemen dressed in white will come pick you up, and that everything will be just fine. Haha! Foreshadowing! When you tell him fuck, I mean the F word, he will tell you that he has yet to receive a mark on his forehead. It is heavily implied that Alex is a part of a cult. 11/12 Episode 1 was met with a huge critical success. It was a big game within a seemingly small one, with engaging puzzles on the Apple iPhone during its heyday. It did not see a big success in the US due to its initially shaky localization from French into English. But Agartha listened and released an updated version 2.0 of the game, fixing the shaky UI, subpar localization, and making it more in line with its sequels. After all, it was the first episode of the game. A second episode just had to follow, you know? The updated version featured something quite special, an HD overhaul of the game for iPad and iMac devices. If you notice the footage I was using, I was in fact playing the HD version of the game. The next episode directly starts where the previous one left off, in that hotel room in New York City. How did Lewis get there? Your guess isn't as good as mine, as I'm going to delve into episode 2's plot. Are you ready for this? But before I get into it, I should quickly mention that a tutorial sequence was added to help you navigate easily through the game, and that includes the fast travel feature, where you just tap on the screen with 3 fingers that will quickly show you arrows you could tap on to quickly get out of an area. Back to the plot.
My rhythm is entering your veins. I'm your song. I'm your song. My notes are going through your lips. My melody needs to cradle you softly. My rhythm is entering your veins. My harmonies are dancing with you. My vibes are keeping you strong. My blues is raising your mind. I'm your song. I'm your song. My notes are going through your lips. My melody needs to cradle you softly. My rhythm is entering your veins. My harmonies are dancing with you. My vibes are keeping you strong. My blues is raising your mind. I'm your song. I'm your song. I'm your song.
The game begins with a short recap of the first episode, giving you what you need to know from Lewis's perspective. Lewis wakes up in his hotel room. only to find his wallet with him. In his pocket, he finds the business card of one Goodman, which makes him begin to suspect what's going on with him. He takes out his American Express Platinum card from his wallet to prepare himself for the worst. He goes on to inspect the hotel's bathroom, only to hear the phone ring. He picks it up and this happens. He receives another call from the front desk. Lewis doesn't take it lightly and shouts at the receptionist, who claims they're the only ones capable of calling. He mentions that Lewis forgot his phone when checking into the hotel, bewildering Lewis in the process. Lewis decides to inspect the bathroom since he could hear a thumping sound coming from the room next to him. The sound sends him to a vision of a silhouette knocking on what appears to be a glass pane. Lewis opens the garbage can only to find his precious Valix pills and a torn up paper, throwing us into a puzzle. Upon solving this puzzle, the paper says don't trust Goodman, all in Lewis's own handwriting. Ominous. He goes out into the hallway, and he still hears the thumping noise. The room next to him is useless, because no one responds to his calls. He notices the maid cart and inspects the room next to it, only to find an enraged Latina woman furiously cleaning her room while talking about the cheapskate she dates. Lewis notices a room key on the ground, and the woman doesn't hesitate to kick him out. He heads to the reception and finds no one there. He finds a roll of paper saying "Secret Stash." As well as an umbrella. Outside the building of the hotel is an ATM, and he checks his account balance, only to find it bloated as Anna told him before. He tries to withdraw money, only to receive $50 from the whole deal. He finds a hot dog vendor who goes by the name of Cletus. Cletus points out that he never saw Lewis entering the hotel the first time, and mentions his girlfriend, called Conchita, who works as a housekeeper in the hotel, much to his dismay. Lewis knows it's time to have a little chat with our little Conchita, as you now have pieced up what's going on between the two. Conchita is clearly pissed at Cletus, and hints very heavily that he has yet to propose to her. Goddamn. She mentions along the way of the conversation about a weird customer on the 10th floor who refuses to have his room cleaned. Stinky. So it's kinda obvious that he needs to get rid of Conchita if he's to get the room key. So he tries to get them back together and offers to help Cletus buy a ring. Conveniently, there's a jewelry store nearby, but too bad there's a Karen in the store. So he just has to come back later. Or maybe. He heads back to the hotel to find the customer of the 10th floor asking for a good place to eat, but won't stop ringing the bell till he gets any. Lewis baits him out with an umbrella and notices the customer dropped his keys, so he curiously decides to investigate the room, since, well, Conchita said that it's not getting cleaned, so he must be a psycho, right? When he gets to the room, the psycho also gets back, so Lewis goes into hiding, bonk, and knocks him down. Failing to do so will result in a bad ending where the psycho just, kills Lewis. So Lewis grabs a few items from there that are useful for more puzzles, and investigates the room of an obvious serial killer with an obsession to cut anything in his sight. Back in the reception, Lewis invades Archibald's secret stash of $2,000. That is basically theft. Poor Archie. The Karen is still in the store though, so Lewis has to do something to get her out of there, so he... Take that, Karen!
Can I speak to your manager?
Lewis finally gets to the store and purchases the ring for Cletus. thus ending the sweet character arc, as Lewis envies the couple's love and passion, lamenting his sweet love that he had shared with Anna. Now that he has access to the room, he braces himself to meet the person behind the door. Lewis wakes up from his vision and decides he must get his phone back and quickly speak to Goodman. He finds Archibald chilling in his desk, purposefully ignoring Lewis until a Sudoku puzzle is solved. Archibald will give Lewis back his cell phone and will note that Lewis came in with a man in black with a ponytail and a dark expression. Lewis reports the psycho to Archibald, but Archibald will pretty much keep neutral about it as it's company policy. Lewis grabs the phone and is notably unable to contact anyone on his contact list, but he does have Goodman's office number. Calling it will greet you with his secretary, who says Goodman is on business and cannot schedule an appointment with him anytime soon. Lewis takes it to his own hands to find Goodman on his own. Goodman's secretary is no real help in person, who's quite dismissive of Lewis and cuts all conversations short. She does mention, however, that Goodman never officially left to New Jersey to meet with Lewis. What's up with that? And she kicks him out immediately. He knows he can't doubt his own memory, so something must be hidden away from him. But what should he do? Outside, he finds a bum named Biff, who is not exactly someone you want to talk to.
Have you heard of the Elder Scroll?
Thanks to his eating habits and his horrendous singing. He eats cats. He tells you many times when he sings, the receptionists, aka Clara, steps out and scolds him. So Lewis begins to formulate a plan. Using the bum outside to his advantage, he manages to intoxicate Bergman and begins his snooping. Inside the warehouse, he discovers a painting that is identical to his previous vision that he had at room 1111. He ponders its meaning before getting kicked out by the security guard. When he leaves, he receives a text message from Felicity, saying that she's very worried about him and that he hasn't communicated with her for days. Lewis decides it's time to head back to New Jersey, as it's pointless to loiter around Goodman's warehouse much longer. After solving yet another puzzle for Archibald, Lewis makes his way to Chinatown to take a bus from there. Much to his ill fortune, an old woman has the last bus ticket, and he must trade her a cupcake and a magazine in order for her to endure the wait for another bus. He gives her the mag and heads to the nearby cafe to buy her their specialty cupcake. A hipster appears and swipes it before Lewis could even say a word. Desperate to get his bus ticket, Lewis follows the hipster back to the hotel and finds her in a trance-like state, mumbling cryptic talk. She exits her trance and claims she never took the cupcake and doesn't even know anything about where she is. Lewis heads back to the shop to buy the cupcake, only to find it in shambles. Like the apocalypse happens. Confused, he gets his bus ticket back and embarks to his home in New Jersey. On the bus, he meets a sweet lady who introduces herself as Natalie, and whom she claims she has met Lewis before. Lewis dismisses her conversation, seeing that he had a very long day. The bus stops to refuel, and Lewis takes an innocent bathroom break, only to find that the psychopath had followed him all the way through to the bus.
Here's Johnny!
He escapes to the bathroom, and then this happens. Episode 2 retains the hidden dialogue system from the first game, offering only Easter eggs rather than lore and information you must know for future games. The only piece of info I found interesting and relevant was that of Archibald's, who admits that Conchita has a side business in this hotel, if you know who to talk to. Or Cletus. The mystery was indeed thickened, as Lewis now knows of a man with a ponytail, whom we can only assume is related to Goodman in some way. Notice Clara Bergman's character design, and you'll notice her distinct tattoo of the spinning logo Goodman had flashed when, quote-unquote, explaining everything to Lewis. Episode 2 focused more on being a linear plot that left not much room for exploration, because it had a beefier story to tell than its predecessor. Its sequel, the third episode, is way larger in scope than that. But let's talk IRL now, shall we? In the meantime that episode 2 was released, a game by Agartha in collaboration with Gameloft was released. That game was called Rogue Galaxy. It had reached some success, and unfortunately I barely have that one even preserved. It was an RTS set in space, and that's all I can say about it. The game's key visual was present in Episode 2 while Lewis is looking through Goodman's warehouse. Episode 2 featured an upgrade over Episode 1 by featuring a better soundtrack by Odyssey, aka Dmitry Pachkov, who collaborated with Italian jazz artist Ida Landsberg, who was kind enough to answer many of my questions. Link in the description, by the way. Agartha notably upped the budget of Episode 2 as it hired many freelancers to aid it in its work on the second episode, as well as overhauling the UI to look good and presentable, and it is now the one we're all used to. August 2011 saw the release of the third episode. Agartha at the same time claimed it to be longer than Episodes 1 and 2 combined. And boy were they right. Episode 3 features significantly tougher puzzles and a complete mindbender for the player as you begin to see Lewis detaching himself from reality. Episode 3 was designed to be non-linear, and I will tell Episode 3's story in the best order possible. Episode 3 notably adds a new feature, an objective tree to help you track down what you're supposed to do. And now, without further ado, let's get to the latest episode of 11/12.
Sputtering of candle flame, sputtering of the faith's flame, and no.
The episode starts once again with Lewis's point of view of the previous episode, and shows us that Lewis ends up in John's bathroom. John is a name we already know from episode 1, as he was mentioned by Todd and Anna, and he's the smuggler of tobacco around town. John tries to calm Lewis down by reassuring him that he relates to Lewis after Natalie left him, and that Anna is coming back for sure. Lewis knows that he has to dive into the crazy world he found himself in, no matter what. So he steps out of the bathroom and proceeds to talk to John. John will reveal that Lewis's trip to New York City was 6 months ago, and that Lewis frequently went on business trips with Goodman. John notes that Anna also frequently went away from home, but tries his best to reassure Lewis that she's probably waiting for him at home. If it didn't click yet, Natalie of episode 2 is John's wife, by the way. And we get out. Winter has settled. He decides to go back to his house and check up on Anna, only to find this. The house is a complete mess. Lewis's confusion grows and decides he must report what's going on to the police. And so he must gather witness reports of Anna's whereabouts. So he goes into town. Naturally, the first place you'll think of going to is Lois's own store, and unfortunately, it's also been destroyed. Felicity sits there, crying at her own powerlessness, unable to move. Only one person can get her out of this stump. Perhaps? Lewis heads to the Orlando bar, that's been surprisingly doing really well, with customers freely drinking around without the police on their case. Wow, I think we missed a lot here, people. Lewis hits up Todd and asks how he's doing. Todd will hint that he and Felicity did go out together at some point, but Lewis ruined that by informing her of episode 1's ass shot. When asked about Anna, Todd isn't really surprised, and he says that this isn't the first time Anna disappeared for a couple of days. He also mentions a man who was asking around Anna and who was waiting outside her shop. The man matches the description of Ponytail Guy from episode 2. The customers, Gordon, Leslie, Kirill, and Mev, won't give you the time of day, so you just ignore them. Felicity isn't really feeling well, so you decide to look for someone else. Hey, Don's open. Let's see what he has to say. He saw Anna arguing with a man about the exit, which is referring to the text Anna got from Anthony in episode 1. Interesting.
Foreshadowing is a narrative device in which suggestions or warnings about events to come are dropped or planted.
Let's see, who else can help? Hey! Why not ask the Republican neighbors? That sure would help. They won't open up the door for Lewis, though. So he has to use unorthodox methods to come into contact with them.
Excuse me, do you know where my wife is?
Yeah, it's back the way you came.
Desperate times call for desperate measures, I suppose. Lewis's hot-ass neighbor arrives, so he must hide. Igmar said that he heard the neighbor lost it and destroyed his own shop with a baseball bat. Lewis wouldn't do that. He decides it's time to talk to Chloe, the neighbor's wife. She is a weird woman, that is for sure.
The #1 toothpaste brand in America, Crest.
She will say that Anna has had a suspicious guest that always stood at the foot of the house, only when Lewis was away on business. Anna usually steps out after an hour or two, whispers something into the man's ear, and that man just leaves. You can see that the room Chloe and Igmar sleep in contains a coffin. When asked about the coffin, she'll recount a dream where she and Igmar were experiencing feelings of catharsis when lying down inside a coffin in a room lit bright red. So they decided to model their bedroom after it to reenact the same feeling they had in their dream. Igmar is also back, and he has bad news for us. The psychopath escaped during a prison transfer, and is now in New Jersey. He seriously still can't be out for blood, can he? Well, anyways, Igmar won't say a word without a Remington rifle, so you gotta get him that. Lewis goes to the one person he firmly believes has one, and yep, it's Todd. Lewis remembers Felicity is in need of emotional support, so he sends out Todd to comfort her. Giving him the chance to nab the Remington and talk to Igmar. Igmar is your average American with a gun. And that's all you need to know about him. Ask him about Anna though, he'll tell you about a guy with a ponytail who frequently visited her house when Lewis was on business trips. Igmar will also mention that he works for Astrid as a hunter for animals so that she can perform taxidermy on them. Now that Felicity is finally calmed down, it's time to get her to talk. So when she does, she'll nag about how much Lewis went on business trips with Goodman after signing an artwork exchange contract. When asked about Anna, she'll enrage Lewis by claiming that Anna is in fact cheating on Lewis, to which Lewis tries to dismiss her and pretty much call her out on her bullshit. Back in the bar, the 4 tenants are finally willing to talk to you if you do some side quests for them, which are a bunch of puzzles as well. Kirill will ask you to do riddles and has nothing to say about Anna, but he's the key to let Mev talk to you.
now, man. But that thing... It scares me.
Mev will ask you to have a few rounds with her. When all that's done, she will reveal that Anna was an old high school acquaintance of her. But Anna seems to have forgotten all about her and really has no idea who she is. Weird. Leslie will ask Lewis to find her Sparky, or cat, while Gordon asks Lewis to find him a bottle of genuine Kerbecke bourbon. Let's try to help Gordon. He says Todd has Kerbecke in his reservoir, so Lewis asks Todd to gain access to said reservoir, and finds inside a broken bottle of Kerbecke bourbon and a bottle of the knockoff Crick bourbon. What if Anna's shop is open? Maybe he can gather details and the booze there. He hits up Anna's shop only to find Astrid coming out of there. She's startled to see him, so he decides he needs to pay her a visit. Her home's trapdoor is open, so he goes in there. The room has a lot of taxidermized animals, and among them is a black collar saying Sparky. Astrid, you witch. Lewis presses on to unlock the door to her house, and is now in her living room. He uses the tea kettle to pull off the old switcheroo on the labels of the whiskey. He climbs up to Astrid's room, whom she refuses to speak to him unless he shows her the symbol of the true path, and that he would start from the box of Hermes. Whatever this thing will send us on a wild goose chase to find the symbol and a long series of intricate puzzles. You can go ahead and skip. The final riddle is, the path of revelation is in the hands of nativity. I will now introduce you to the preacher lady, who is nested at the police station with a carriage baby. With a baby carriage in hands.
What are those?
Yes, hands, in plural, as it literally carries doll hands in it. She calls Lewis a false prophet, an imprint, and tells him to bring back the Book of the True Path. Lewis finds that book in Astrid's house and gives it to her, and now she's finally willing to talk. He finds the locket in her baby carriage, similar to the receptionist's tattoo. The preacher is nameless, sadly, and she insists on calling Lewis the imprint, one who is bound by a fate they must never know until it reaches him. She really has nothing to say as it's all culty gibberish. Back in Astrid's home, now that she wants to talk to Lewis, she will finally read his fortune, and I will let Astrid do the talking for me on this one. Lewis will tell her about his state, the teleportations, and she comments that he is losing control, and that this is all the will of the Master Spirit. Astrid will reveal to Lewis that the Book of Prophecies belongs to Anna, and that Anna asked Astrid to pick up the book. He is very involved with all the business related to this book. How strange. Now that Lewis's business with Astrid is done, he decides it's time to speak with Leslie and Gordon. Leslie will tell Lewis that Anna recently had a heated conversation with Astrid outside her shop. Gordon will tell Lewis that he met Anna on a bus from New York to New Jersey 6 months ago. Excuse me, what? Something is going on here. Lewis knows something is up and must talk to the police about it. Like all cops though, they dismiss him, saying that she might have just been sleeping around and left him.
Hey pal, you just blowing from Stupid Town?
So they ask him to bring solid audiovisual proof. And upset Lewis decides to do just that. Whew, now that's half of the game right there. A bridge to exclude all the puzzles that will make this video way longer than it already is. In this half, we have guided Lewis to gather witness reports about Anna's whereabouts, while immersing ourselves with Jaylinsville in the winter. Lewis must now gather evidence of Anna's state in order to convince the police. If you thought things could not get worse than they already are, think again, because it's about to go downhill from here. With Lewis out of the police station, you'll recognize episode 2's bus dropping off people from New York. Lewis recognizes the bus driver and hopes to ask him about Anna, but the driver speeds off quickly without noticing Lewis in the first place, sadly. On the bench, he finds a camera, probably left by Japanese tourists. The camera lacks any film, sadly, and he concludes that the camera can be used to take photos of the graffiti strewn around his house and his shop. On his way home, Don is seen closing his shop and a strange man called Fish picks the lock and heads into the shop. Lewis catches him red-handed and is sent on a wild goose chase to find Fish across town. The chase will lead him into Astrid's house, where surprisingly she wasn't there. And on her chair, he finds Anna's phone? But let's get back to Fish for now. After the chase ends, Fish gives in and hands Lewis his lockpick in exchange for Lewis's silence. Lewis decides to go to Anna's shop first and foremost, as it must hide the most secrets. In the shop, he finds the trapdoor to her basement that contains her stock and takes out its camera film. He opens her cash register and finds his missing dictaphone along with 2 tapes, one a blank and the second being labeled as Anna. The conversation it holds is one where Anna speaks to a stranger. The conversation cuts a lot and I'll let you see it in its entirety. Lewis takes photo of all the graffiti lying around in his home and in his shop. One graffiti is missing though. Could it be somewhere else that he happens to value just as much as the last 2 places? Wait, his best friend's place, of course. So he does another B&E to check if the house caught any harm. And the house was not spared from the graffiti. John's bedroom turned into a room that houses a lot of legally acquired tobacco. Lewis now has to develop the photos, and notes that Anna has a darkroom in the basement, so he decides to crack it open. After Lewis develops the photos and heads back into his house, he hears the phone ringing from within his office? It's upstairs and was only mentioned in episode 1. Guess we finally get to see it. The phone will play over and over this following recording. Lewis is creeped out and finds Anna's laptop lying around. He opens it only to find 2 emails, one from the bank suspecting the huge transfer of money from episode 1, and the other from Anthony, once again referring to the exit, the cult, the painting, and Lewis. On the very same desk, Lewis finds 2 torn up photos, and I admit, this was a very challenging puzzle. And they happen to have captions on the back. The first saying, "I feel empty," and the second says, "He is coming." This calls for concern. Lewis now knows it's time to report this to the police. And I think I'll show rather than tell on this one. Well, enjoy. Or not.
saudade. Ayer fui otro, cada segundo me roba a mí mismo intranquilidad, donde el silencio deja entender ruidos, el canto de los nervios. Ah, qué saudade, cuando no sabemos lo que fuimos ayer, pero lo sentamos como un pensamiento, memoria de amor que acosa a los viejos. Ayer fui otro. Oh, qué saudade. Ayer fui otro. Cada segundo me roba a mí mismo intranquilidad, donde el silencio deja entender ruido, el canto de los nervios. Ah, qué saudade, cuando no sabemos lo que fuimos ayer, pero lo sentamos como un pensamiento, memoria de amor que acosa a los viejos. Ayer fui otro.
And so, after a very typical example of police brutality, Lewis finds himself at the beaches of the San Lazaro Mental Institute, listening to the calming sounds of the ocean's waves and the music on his radio. A nurse by the name of Raphael approaches him and asks him to take his medications. This indicates that Lewis's mental state is slowly but surely deteriorating. There are so many mysteries that are yet to be discovered. Whatever happened to Amma? Whatever happened to Goodman? What about the man with the ponytail? And what happened to the stranger of Jamesville? Anyways, the third episode was the last episode to be released so far. Agartha promised us for a fourth episode, one that will be a conclusion that will tie up all of the loose ends. But unfortunately, by 2014, Agartha stopped providing us with any updates whatsoever on the status of the episode. The fans on the Facebook comments were quite enraged, looking for an answer. You know, you can probably find my comment down there somewhere. But anyways, when iOS 11 slid by, so did the support of all 32-bit apps. It just left. Any 32-bit app on the App Store that was not updated was quite simply removed. And alongside them was the original 1112 trilogy. And by January of 2022, the Mac Store also removed any 32-bit apps when it updated to macOS 10.16. But you know, between you and me, I finally cracked the code. I now know how the story ends. Goodman? Ah! That's what they want you to think. And it's not Ponytail Guy either. It's San Lazaro. Wait, what are you doing? No, that's not how it ends! Wait, what are you doing?
What we're gonna do is a little re-education. I'm going to go grab your pills. And this time, I suggest you swallow them.
Can I at least finish the documentary, sister?
Don't take too long.
Anyways, now that he's gone, the game is officially lost and was abandoned by Agartha. When 2019 rolled by, they confirmed our fears and announced on their Facebook page that 11/12 Episode 4 has been cancelled in favor of their new vision to develop virtual reality titles. The flagship game that they were working on at the time was called Stardust Odyssey, released for the PlayStation 4. It turns out that the whole team had a dispute over developing adventure games, and so the original members left the team. Alexandre Leboucher now works at Arcade Studios, and you can actually find his digital footprint on Deathloop. And Aurélien Kerbeki now works at Lyon's Virtual Studio. He's actually the president there. If you try to look up Agartha Studio, try to find the website, as of 2022, it's just gone. Disappeared. Agartha is officially dead. Back in 2020, I happened to stumble upon a YouTube channel called Unsorted Pixels. That channel happened to upload direct rips of the video game's OST on there, claiming to do it in the name of preservation. That triggered something in me, and I decided to text them, try to reach out to them, and hoping to collaborate with them on this documentary that I'm working on now. Sam, if you're watching this, thank you. You've given me so much hope throughout this period, and it means so much to me, just trying to finish this. Oh no. Oh no. Is he really gone? I have no choice here, people. I gotta make a run for it. Is he really gone? This is it. The exit. Come on. Let's get the hell out of here. Sam and I got Mr. Leboucher to answer us a few questions for the sake of this documentary. To summarize what he said, internal disputes happened within Agartha. He and Taramon both quit, and Episode 4 was in limbo in that period due to the intense amount of funds needed for an indie studio to develop a game of this volume. Seeing that no one was interested within the newly hired staff in carrying on with adventure games, they decided to pursue VR games instead. Mr. Leboucher till this day still shows interest in finishing what he had started, as his Twitter profile photo is still Lewis from Episode 4, and has expressed that if given the chance, bringing this game over to the PC would be his priority. Upscale to 4K with the works. Knowing this gives me some hope of rescuing this game from the dark depths it has fell into. What made me fall in love with this game is something I still cannot describe. It's a 2008 game that I happened to stumble upon back in the summer of 2010, when it was temporarily made for free. I remember playing it and I barely understood anything, but I know that the art was lavish, good looking, even for a 10-year-old. Who was it to anime of all things, really? I remember going all over the place because of the ending, and in the good sense. I asked my older brother to play it and he loved it just as much as I did. The first thing I did when I got my iPod Touch was to get my hands on Episode 2 because of its theme song, Song for Her, which you all had the pleasure of listening to at the very beginning of this video. When Sam and I got into contact, we made it our mission to preserve Fate Team and Agartha's works. And, good news, they're all available on our Notion page, so do check it out. Okay. I've kept silent about it, and that's because I myself still barely understand what's going on. But I'll make sure I'll be the one to do it. Fate was the original work this was all based on, and it is indeed a complete game and a complete story, albeit inaccessible today since the ROM was barely discovered from a short-lived Google Drive link that had preserved a bunch of Pocket PC games. And I was lucky enough to find it at the time after extensively digging through Google. I have recorded the entire playthrough via a Windows XP virtual machine that happened to run an emulator for the Pocket PC. And I experienced the full story for myself because of this documentary. I insisted on letting this game see the light of day in video form. Someone has to talk about it, and that's gonna be me. As I was writing this video, I knew I was just delaying talking about it, as it's really big. The cast of characters are the following: Louis, Anna, Felicity, now renamed Felicien, Goodman, known in the game as Belleville, Alex, Astrid, John, and Natalie, who's known in the game as Christine. And of course, the ever so mysterious Anthony. The game's setting is changed to France, and the lovely couple are not fighting over their area of residence at all. However, the core plot of episodes 1 to 3 are still there, beat by beat. Louis compiles the files for Goodman, has to deal with Alex's need for cigarettes, gets questioned by Goodman about Isle of the Dead, and then suddenly gets transported to a hotel room. He gets out of the hotel room and tries to get back to Jaylinsville, now called Saint-Jouar, by bus. He actually went by train, and meets Natalie on the same bus, or train. He, however, teleports to John's bathroom and seeks to find Anna. His house is a wrecked mess, his alarm clock says exit, and there are tags of graffiti strewn around his house. Louis gathers up evidence for the police.
Peace. Yeah, boy.
And you know the drill. That's when he ends up at St. Lazaro Mental Institute, I will refer to it as SL, and finds himself in a strange place. He claims that he's been at the mental hospital before due to his amnesia problems that were caused by his mother's death. San Lazaro has a very strict set of rules and an asshole nurse named Zampano. Zampano won't ever let you go anywhere, sadly, and you're forced to explore with what little resources you have left. He makes a new friend of one of the patients who seems to be a little bit more sane than the rest of the crew, so he asks Louis to meet him in secret near the she-wolf statue. Louis meets his new buddy, and he tells him that he will give him a special treasure in exchange for his only sustainable source of nutrients. The insects. When given the I can't even say it with a straight face, the insects, he will give you an entire crown of teeth. This crown of teeth can be used to dig out anything out of the ground without dirtying yourself, as Zampano apparently will punish you for being dirty. A disturbingly intelligent patient will lead you to a suspiciously looking tree stump. Digging through that stump will give you the flask of white wine and a key. What are their uses, I wonder? Now remember, we gotta get out of here, and only the nurse responsible for you, Zampano, can get you in with the doctor if he has the okay. So we need Zampano out of our way for us to have ours. At the tool shed, we find a patient practicing Zen and asks Louis to find him something that will help him in his spiritual awakening, in exchange for his porno magazine. What's a spiritual building we can make use of in here? That's right, the chapel. Upon talking to the father, he's not really responsive, so we need to get him to talk. He will mention his love for kheer, which is white wine mixed with blackberry juice. After getting the cook Mario out of the kitchen, Louis manages to mix up some kheer for the priest, who gets drunk almost immediately and gives Louis a copy of the Holy Bible in return. Mr. Zen finally gives you his magazine, which Zampano eats up. Louis heads to the receptionist Gelsomina's and asks her to meet the doctor since Zampano isn't really here to say no, but really isn't here to say yes either. Lewis visits the doctor in his office, and if Lewis answers hospital trivia correctly, he can get out. Sadly, the doctor isn't exactly kind, and all of the choices he gives you are incorrect, so you can't really get out. Lewis is escorted back to his room, and from there he thinks of escaping the hospital if they won't let him out by normal means. He remembers a conversation he had with his fellow patient about the pyromaniac Parks, who managed to escape but was recommitted to the hospital. Upon waking up, Lewis's good friend passes away after choking on the insects he eats for breakfast. With that confusion going on and Zampano not being on his case, Lewis goes to visit Parks in his cell. Parks is clearly an insane, yet intelligent pyromaniac who orders Lewis to burn the tool shed in exchange for telling him about the escape route. Now, where do we gather the material needed for the fire? You'd need alcohol, something to light the fire, something to set on fire, distract the staff, and really, just set the fire. Using a broom he found at the laundromat, Lewis opens the attic to find a creepy sight, a man with a cloth over his head just standing there pointing at something. No matter what option you pick, he will not speak nor interact with you. Lewis examines the spot the man was pointing at and finds a matchbook. We got ourselves a source of fire, that's good. Lewis now needs to do something so that he can throw it at the shed from a distance. And he managed to find a bottle of alcohol. Still disturbed from the man in the attic, Lewis decides to talk to Gelsomina about it, who completely ignores him as she's too infatuated with Zampano to give a shit. So he's gotta find Zampano. Luckily, Zampano's been pleasuring himself dry, and I bet he's still doing that. Plus, maybe he wants to put these theories into practice, you know? You tell Zampano about Gelsomina needing him, and he rushes to her rescue. Luckily, some of the toilet paper was saved from the humiliation of its lifetime. Well, in the bigger picture, I do think it would want to stay with Zampano if it knows what Lewis wants to do, but we're not going to talk about that. Anyways, Lewis still wants to distract Zampano and Gelsomina, so what does he do about that? He goes to Parks' neighboring cells and notices that Parks' neighbors hate each other's guts. So Lewis decides to jump in on the action and makes very sure they know how much they hate each other. Well enough for Zampano and Gelsomina to want to interfere. When Lewis reports the fight between the patients, they mention that the doctor should also know about this. Yes, the same doctor who answered your questions, and that he's in the morgue performing an autopsy. Lewis manages to get the doctor out of the way. Now that the coast is clear, he goes to the shed blocks the security camera, and onto the ground it goes. Parks is very proud of him for setting more fires around San Lazaro, and finally reveals the hidden escape route that is within the linen room, where it turns out that all the linen are washed outside of the hospital in a town called Noche. Lewis jumps at the opportunity only to be discovered by the very gentle nurse who escorts him back to his doctor. His doctor reluctantly puts him in solitary confinement on order of the hospital's governor, after noticing many strange writings on the walls of his cell. Lewis was sentenced into solitary confinement in the White Room. Stripped of all his clothing, he tries to call out for someone to help, but no one is there. The door unlocks though, and he is welcomed to the beloved noise that plagued his home when it was wrecked in episode 3. Turns out it was playing from Gelsomina's tape recorder, so he shuts it off. He finds a letter in the drawer where Gelsomina says she hid the entrance and changed the code. It's still at the statue? Well, the only statue I know of with significance is the she-wolf statue. Examining it will reveal a keyhole and a tiny Zodiac-related puzzle. Solve those, and the secret entrance is finally revealed. When that's all done, Lewis finds a meeting of a cult, and okay, here's where it gets weird. Anna is on a pedestal getting sacrificed.
Alright, I gotta leave, okay?
John, we just started. Come on, man.
Listen, there's a lot to see in this life. Not wasting it here.
A man with a black ponytail preaching to the crowd, the doctor with a sacrificial knife in hand aiding Mr. Ponytail, and calls out the imprint, and John, who points at said imprint. Okay, this was a doozy and a big flurry of WTFs right there. Before the cult gets a hold of Lewis, yeah, boom, he teleports once again. Why am I not surprised? Lewis finds himself back in his home. It is now neat and clean again. Lewis strangely is in denial, thinking he went back in time. Sadly, the phone rang, and it was the police. They had sad news. The police reports the body of Anna Averett, and they need their husband to come and identify her body. Lewis rushes to the forest where she was found and sees a naked woman with a mutilated body, similar to that of the one in the cult's meeting. Anna's funeral goes on, with the main cast crying over her. Felicity, John, and Goodman are all present in the funeral. Felicity informs Lewis that she wishes to stay with him for this period of time to help him recover. Goodman advises Lewis to keep on working as a way to cope with the loss. John tells Lewis that he is willing to stay with him for a few days and take care of him. He asks him to calm down and accept reality. You're wondering why Lewis didn't say anything about John being in the cult, you say? Combine his amnesia with the shock factor. Lewis looks back to the time when he found Anna's body. Her hair was strangely all black instead of her iconic red hair. So he concludes that Anna was not the one sacrificed and that she was still alive. He tried piecing everything together. The serial killer followed him everywhere from the hotel into his hometown. So he must have been stalking him for the gap of 6 months the whole time, raising Anna's suspicions and her fears and anxiety. Anna must have chosen to escape the clutches of the psycho after he trashed Lewis's shop with the baseball bat, along with their house. Lewis concludes that Anna must have left him with some form of a clue for him to follow. She just had to. In his toilet's cabinet, he finds within it a plastic bag that contains 3 photos. The first being of the front door of his mother's apartment. The second was of him and a childhood friend called Alex. Hey, that sounds familiar. Staring at a painting called Isle of the Dead. The third was of a strange music box he loved, that his mother had kept in the front door the whole time. His next course of action was very obvious. Lewis, along with Felicity, finally go back to New York, to his mother's house. Felicity stays in the hotel though, and I believe you know which one I speak of. Lewis begins his investigation. The first room he goes to is his mother's living room. In it, he finds a strange circle of salt bearing the symbol of nativity. The room also heavily smells of tobacco. Louis heads to his mother's bedroom and finds Anna's briefcase in its closet. The same closet also contains a full BDSM set for some reason. Louis takes that set and ponders everything on his mom's bed. But he hears a noise, in which turns him to find a key underneath the mattress of the bed. The key says AS on it, but why? He goes to her bathroom and finds that it's growing full-on tobacco in it, and it's taking water from the sink. In the sink, he notices a key stuck in it, and he fishes it out. The key, to no one's surprise, is the key to the music box. Upon opening Pandora's box, he finds Anna's holy notebook from episode 1. The notebook is in a visibly terrible condition though, and only a few pages are solvable. The pages are as follows. Page number 2, Giselle Montfort, an old woman who is the landlord of a building. Anna calls her an old bitch, and it seems they have some form of a history together. Anna will mention her recent visit to her, and will reveal that her accident took place around the same time as Louis. Page number 5, Anthony St. Armand, a man who basically hooked up with Anna a while ago at the Bellevue Hotel. Anna found him to be an escape from Louis's willingness to forget his past, as Anna wanted to explore hers and relate to Louis. She called Anthony a sort of a father figure who truly helped her with her awakening, and will now prepare to help her go through the door. Page number 7, Natalie Leather. She was the one who put Anna and Anthony into contact together apparently, as part of her awakening. Anna and Natalie had to go beyond social conventions in a bedroom together, if you catch my drift. And she liked it. She was left very confused, but hey, we support. Page number 10, Alex was here. She had trouble contacting him, but she managed to find this old friend whom he had met in Italy at a holiday camping trip. She inquired him about Louis's past and how he acted after the incident. And she has noticed that he spies on her from time to time, but she dismisses it saying, "Aren't we all spies after all?" Page number 12, Goodman. Anna came in contact with Goodman after Anthony gave her his address. Anna knows that Goodman is up to no good for Louis, and she wants to confront him, telling him to keep her and Louis out of his schemes, though she is not certain of how things will go after that. Wanting to get to the bottom of what Anna said about her accident, he decided to go talk to Giselle, who immediately hung up on him after he introduced himself as Anna's husband. He goes to her apartment complex, and still she doesn't want to give him a chance to talk or explain himself. Louis goes to her front doors anyways, and she finally cracks and talks. Giselle opens the door to him and dismisses Louis as a common petty thief and is distrusting of men. Louis, justifiably angry, tells her that he's Anna's husband and is searching for her. Giselle immediately apologizes and begins talking. Anna did indeed come to Giselle. She asked her of her past. When Anna was 13, she and her family moved into the building. Giselle will note that Anna did not have the demeanor of a child, quite the opposite. She looked and spoke mature. She was so much like that to a very disturbing degree. One day, Anna moved out of the country into Italy all by herself, which was caused by an accident in her head, which caused her to have severe amnesia. She vanished without a trace along with her parents. "15 years later, Giselle recognizes Anna in public thanks to her disturbingly dark stare. Anna was at a swingers club called The Exit. Anna and her friends were dressed as whores. The two friends were a man with a ponytail and a woman with short red hair. We know who that one is. Louis heads to The Exit, and from there he sees it only opens at night, and that there are 2 conditions to enter. Number 1, you must have a partner with you, no exceptions. Number 2, dress code is sexy, don't come in if you don't want to get railed. Lucky for Louis, a certain nosy secretary who's easy to manipulate is just waiting for him at the hotel. Louis heads to Bellevue and speaks to Archibald. Archibald is still reading that newspaper of his and will recommend Louis a nice restaurant. He also notes that Louis is staying in the same room as usual, room 1112. And we know Archibald's love for gossip, so he mentions his dislike towards illegitimate couples who come to hook up around the hotel, and notes a specific trio who were so loud he had actually reported them for violating the peace. We already know who they are, and the room they did everything in? Room 1111. Now's the time for action. Louis swiftly asks Felicity out to dinner, and she agrees. Romantic candles are lit, Felicity's chatterbox goes on, and Louis wants to go to the exit already. She doesn't want to do any of that though, so our lovely Louis knows what to do to make her do all of this. Drugs, duh, it's Louis we're talking about. After he swaps her meds with a bigger dose, Felicity becomes very prone to suggestion and agrees to go to the exit. At the exit, Louis interviews the regulars. They all seem to know who Anthony and Natalie are. Louis notices a weird set of double doors. The patrons refer to it as the doors to hell, an internal premium VIP-only section of the club, where only those approved by Anthony may enter. Dazed, Louis decides to take a breather in the bathroom and dumps intoxicated Felicity to dance with one of the men as per the traditions of the club.
I'm your song.
Don't let your kids watch it!
I'm your song.
Near the bathroom's door is our beloved Natalie. Natalie steps up and talks to Louis, who has a hard time recognizing her. But it slowly eases to him who she really is. She mentions her marriage to John and that she left him for being unclean, manipulated, and never acting out with honor. Louis seeks Natalie's help for finding Anna, so she opens up to him. Natalie will say that Anna found Anthony while seeking enlightenment about her past, and only with his help did she come closer to what she seeks. Natalie will tell you that the only one who possibly knows where Anna is would be Anthony himself. Anthony shows up to the club, and Louis is overcome with anxiety. So he decides to escape the exit, and he goes to the residence of Anthony St. Armand. Whew, boy! I most certainly did not expect the story to go in that direction. And let me be very honest here. All of this isn't what you'd easily pick up on a first playthrough. Well, at least, I certainly didn't. I cannot stress enough how hard it is to make sense out of this game's insane plot dumps. And that's because the game expects you to process everything while you're taking breaks from work, and you're working on solving that sweet puzzle, and you have a PDA that shows the intended resolution and not, like, you know, blown up to a 1080p screen. If you want to take a break, now is the time. The plot has 3 more major parts from here, and it will only get more convoluted from this point forward. But it will all make sense. I mean, you've come this far, right? Come on. With the help of Anna's key, he finally manages to break into Anthony's penthouse. As he goes in deeper, he discovers a beautifully looking door, which only instills the sense of mystery within Louis. Sadly, it won't open, and he attributes that to a special puzzle related to the myth of Medusa. As he tries to solve the puzzle, he encounters a projection room where he finds a video of Anna and Natalie torturing what can be only assumed to be a spy of some sort, a frontman for a bigger power. Louis, however, cannot bear to watch his wife participating in a snuff film, so he decides to look away. After finally opening that mysterious door, he finds himself in Anthony's study. The first thing he finds is a notebook that contains Anna's handwriting and a few names and addresses, exactly like the one he found in his mom's house. But that notebook contained a letter to Anna that says, "I will grant your wish and give you the address of your true enemy who lives close to here." If their prayer will give you peace, I will let you meet them. Lewis finds a series of photographs as well. The first one is of Goodman near the exit. The rest is of a meeting between Goodman and Anna in a forest, having what seems to be a heated argument that escalates to Goodman threatening Anna. Behind the photo is what seems to be a note from the spy/photographer, reporting that his investigation into this matter is unfortunately over. Only the imprint can help them, but it seems his contact with the imprint was not a successful one. The letter is signed, Alex was here. With his purpose clear, he now knows where to go. Lewis arrives at the doorstop of Goodman's house, but Goodman isn't home. Typical. That gives him enough space to do his own snooping, and maybe some B&D. After breaking into Goodman's garage, Lewis finds Goodman's car still inside. Strange. Well, since a certain car's trunk can be useful for us, maybe we can try opening that with some acid we just found lying around.
Wake up out of your head, wanker! Get ready!
How convenient. There are 3 items of interest inside that trunk. Number 1, a painting stolen from Lewis's shop during the break-in in episode 3. Number 2, Anna's shoes, as identified by the smell, which contained a power of attorney card for Lewis. Number 3, a note belonging to Goodman that surveys the area around the apartment of Lewis's mother and calls it the door. He also talks about a painting and calls it the key and that it should be found. Strange. Lewis breaks into the actual car, and in its glove compartment is a note that details Anna's entire movements as she was being spied on. But Goodman puts an addendum that cancels the search for Anna and deems it pointless. It seems this addendum was due to their previous meeting. Lewis finds Felicity in his mother's apartment as she figured out where she could find him. She rambles on and on and on until the phone rings. She picks up the phone, and it seems the caller is asking about Anna. Felicity tells the one on the other side that Anna is dead, and passes the phone over to Lewis. The caller is none other than Alex was here, who says he has failed his mission to protect Anna. Lewis knows he should hurry to Alex's side and ask him more about her. Alex didn't last long after the call. Lewis arrives to find him hung up on the ceiling. Alex now has lost all purpose in life after believing that Anna is dead. He could not stomach that shock. Upon searching him, Lewis finds a strange key. Behind Lewis is a wall, a shrine, completely dedicated to Anna, as Alex's entire purpose at the time was to protect her. The shrine contains a note from Alex, who apologizes for not being able to protect her, and then he managed to steal the key that was in the forest. Lewis is truly shocked to find the stranger that was outside his shop was in fact not a stranger, but his old friend who was looking out for him every step of the way. Behind Alex was Isle of the Dead, his shadow cast on the painting's darkness. After this, Lewis heads back to the hotel and informed the police of the poor man's suicide, and let himself drift into sleep. He wakes up to find Felicity out of the room, and decides to use what's left of his time to go to the bank and receive what Anna might have left him in the hotel's safe. The key that Alex had was of Anna's vault. Lewis opens it only to find a copy of the Holy Bible within it. The Bible had a photograph of Natalie in it. The back says, "You can trust her. You can talk to her at any time in the exit." It seems that's where everything began. Now's a good time to talk to Natalie and Anthony. They're the only ones Lewis can turn to for help at this point. Lewis comes into the exit and is allowed in. He is welcomed by a member of the cult, who looks quite familiar. Perhaps the hippie? She tells Lewis that he, the imprint, is their new prophet after the disappearance of Anna. Lewis is led down to see the same cult hailing the imprint's arrival. Lewis is naturally not feeling well about this. He finally confronts Anthony St. Armand, and Anthony is finally in the mood to share everything. When asked about Anna's whereabouts and their relationship, Anthony will make it clear that everything he and Anna had was not true. He will say that Anna joined Anthony's side to gain information about Goodman's whereabouts, as well as achieving her awakening. Anna's whereabouts are currently unknown to Anthony, and it was all because of Goodman's attempt to make the world believe that she was dead. When asked about Alex was here, he will say that Alex was a private investigator who was hired to help him and Anna fight off against Goodman's schemes and manipulations. Alex was also supposed to inform Lewis about everything, albeit Lewis was very dismissive of him. When asked about what happened in the cult gathering in Italy, Anthony will reveal that it was a staged sacrifice to train new members and that John was one of them, who got too excited at the sight of the imprint, who believed he was a false prophet. Anthony will also reveal that he pulled the strings for Lewis's escape from San Lazzaro. When asked about Natalie, he will reveal that it was her who brought Anna into all of this, as we already know from the photo Anna had kept in her Bible. When asked about the plants Anna grew in his mother's apartment, Anthony will say that this is merely tobacco needed for the cult's rituals. The interrogation is cut short when goddamn Goodman and Felicity arrive on the goddamn scene. Goodman will rant, claiming to be his protector and his good friend. Goodman tells Lewis to avoid the truth and that it was Lewis who gave him life. He marks that Anthony is a traitor who should not be trusted. Anthony and Goodman have a confrontation with each calling the other a liar who is rotten to the core, with Goodman calling Anthony a manipulator with a cult, and Anthony recounting Goodman's attempt at silencing Anna and causing the chaos and turmoil within Lewis. Goodman decides he's had enough of Anthony and douses the cultists in fire. Lewis flees as quickly as he can and is interrupted by the sudden sound of a gunshot from Anthony's gun into Felicity's head, who blocked the true victim of the shot, Goodman. Lewis turns to Anthony, who tells him to flee with his life and take the painting along with him. The painting is the key to his escape, and the key to the truth about Anna. Lewis heads to the door of his mother's apartment. He goes back to the living room that had the circle of nativity drawn on it. The dust lining shows the painting's dimensions, so he hung it there. Long ashtrays surround the room, so he lit the tobacco on top. While all that is happening, Goodman arrives with his men and surrounds the building. He's coming up to Lewis's location. But Lewis manages to teleport one last time to the Isle of the Dead. He finds in front of him the boatman on the pier, staring menacingly. The boatman, however, turns out to be a boatwoman, who is Astrid all along. Astrid congratulates Lewis on making it this far into the Isle of the Dead by using the door and the key correctly. The island is described to be near Noce, the town that is next to San Lazzaro. Lewis agrees to go with Astrid to the island, to the final piece in the puzzle that seems to surround this island. Upon their arrival, Astrid announces that she will not accompany him to the inside. Lewis must discover himself and see where other paths would have led him to. Now, the main purpose of the Isle section is to gather up statues of the main characters for the amphitheater. Each statue will reveal to Lewis a vision of how things would have been if he went down on a different path and made a different choice. Number 1. Alex was here. When Lewis encounters Alex, Lewis will instead invite him out on a drink and reminisce on old times. Alex will tell Lewis of his purpose of visit, which was stalking Anna. His client was none other than Anthony. Number 2. Natalie Leather. Lewis rides with Natalie and he recognizes her. And they have a conversation about the good old times and about Anna. Number 3. John Leather. Lewis decides to calm down and accept Anna's disappearance and sleep over at John's to talk about everything. Number 4. The Doctor. Lewis answers all of the questions correctly and was finally released out of the hospital. Number 5. Anthony St. Armand. Lewis will go back to the crucial moment where he takes the key from Anthony, but instead he chooses to accept his destiny and burns the painting along the fire, as it's the key of their struggle. The puzzle's final reward is a gemstone of some sort. Lewis heads to the top of the island, where he finds the statue of Goodman. Upon putting the gemstone on the statue's hand, the hole in the ground will reveal an elevator down to the final showdown. Lewis descends down the rabbit hole, and in the depths finds the quarrel between Goodman and Anna. He speaks to both of them. Lewis is visibly mad at Anna for disappearing and making him spiral down madness and insanity. Anna profusely apologizes for all what she's done. When he speaks to Goodman, Goodman will go on about how he is in reality summoned by Lewis and is Lewis's unwanted part of his conscience and the executor of his wishes. Goodman wants to end Anna's intervention and wants to wrest Lewis's world into the loop of working in Jalen'sville and working alongside Goodman. Lewis refuses this and instead chooses reality and Anna over that. Goodman, however, still wants to get rid of Anna and threatens her with his gun. But Anna goes on the offensive, throwing Goodman into the fiery pits of the lava, whilst Goodman shoots her fatally before going away. With her final breath, she reminds Lewis that she did all of this for their love, and gives Lewis a parting gift, the second half of the gemstone. Lewis is devastated about all of this, but decides to follow through her death wish. He completes the gemstone over at the statue in a huge natural disturbance. And one final teleportation back to the real world. Ugh, that noise! That awful noise that's been haunting us all this time! We finally know where it's from! Just where are we? Lewis wakes up from what appears to be an iced coffin. Facing him is another coffin, the coffin of Anna Everett. Anna's coffin is not as icy as his, and appears to have gurgles of blood within it. Lewis is shocked to see her still dead, and remains hopeful of finding a way to help her. Looking around, Lewis finds himself in a ship and still hears that noise, which appears to be the ship's motor running. Moments later, the locked door is finally opened, to reveal a person in white asking Lewis to come with him. Lewis is greeted by two doctors who tell him that Anna passed away and can never come back. Lewis is still confused by his surroundings and demands an explanation. Warning! The following scene will explain everything, so unless you want to stay in the dark, I suggest you pay attention really well to this. So it turns out that Lewis is aboard the Damocles medical ship, a very advanced medical system that is aboard a spaceship orbiting the Earth. Patients are treated while in cryogenic sleep. Lewis and Anna Everett are two of their patients. Patients happen to experience relief that leads them to a feeling of catharsis, as indicated by Igmar and Chloe Van Syke. While they are in cryogenic sleep, their minds enter the ship's simulation system, the Fade. The fade, however, is only used when they are in sleep cycles, and the wake-up program forces them to be awake to re-administer treatment. One day, a patient by the name of Louis Everett decides to circumvent the wake-up program, labeled the Starman, and force himself to remain in the Fade system forever and live a seemingly normal life with his wife Anna. So Louis developed Valex, an artificial intelligence meant to keep the Starman out of Louis's way, so that he never wakes up and stays in the simulation. For Valex to activate, Louis must constantly keep on taking the medication. So Valex, aka Goodman, decide to add a promoter who gives Louis a reason to constantly take his pills. Felicity. Felicity must constantly stay in contact with Louis and remind him to take his pills to keep Goodman in power. Goodman is to remain in Louis's life as someone who gives him life. In other words, work in order to keep him occupied. The Starman, aka Anthony, did not want Goodman to stay, as this causes a huge imbalance in the parameters of the Fate system, and halts the treatment of Louis, along with Anna. John was modified by Goodman to attempt to seduce Anna, so that Louis distrusts her. But John quickly switches sides in favor of keeping his relationship with Natalie going. Anthony created the cult in order to not be spotted by the reprogrammed Fade's security system, and formed what seems to be a normal human cult. The cult uses the still banned tobacco for their rituals, as Anna said in episode 1 that it symbolizes freedom, and the main distributor of this tobacco is John Leather, a new member of the cult. Anthony sought out the help of Anna Everett to achieve Louis's awakening. He used 3 people for that cause. Number 1, Astrid, whom Anna had turned to regarding her accident and memory loss and to help her discover herself. Number 2, Alex, who stalked Anna's every move and was hired to protect her at all costs from Goodman's harm. Number 3, Natalie Leather, whose objective was to seduce Anna and bring her over to Anthony's side. With Anna finally by Anthony's side, and her finally beginning to understand everything, Anthony began his plan to help Louis achieve his awakening. Starting from this timeline, episode 1, Goodman visits Louis for work and asks Louis for a copy of his key, so that Louis and Anna cannot be in possession of it. Anna decides she must talk to Louis about everything in hopes he would listen to her. And Alex is supposed to meet up with Louis and talk to him. When Louis was faced with danger of losing his best client, the system of Fade reinitialized to spare Louis's psyche from deterioration, and thus it teleports him. Episode 2. Louis is teleported to Bellevue Room 1112. The Fate's system took him there, so Archibald tells him it was Anthony who did that. Louis tries to find Goodman to demand an explanation, but he never does. Rejected, he decides to head back to Jalen'sville and encounters the hipster. On his way home, he finds Natalie going back to Jalen'sville. While stopping at a gas station, he encounters the psycho who kills the station's attendant. His life is in danger when he enters the station's bathroom, fearing getting killed. And thus, he is teleported once again, in episode 3, into John's house 6 months later in universe time. Louis learns that Anna went scarce in this period of 6 months. What was she doing? Well, now we know that she was helping Anthony fight against Goodman, and she tried to be a double agent between the two. The final confrontation between Anna and Goodman, as documented by Alex, ends with Anna escaping his clutches and using the key to flee to the Isle of the Dead. This gave Goodman the chance to do 2 things. A. Manipulate Louis into believing Anna is dead, and keeping him in his life cycle in order to stay asleep, while working on obtaining the key, so that if all else fails, Louis won't be able to escape. B. Manipulate the police's subcode into criminalizing Anthony's best agent, Alex Was Here, by making him seem like the psycho of New York, so that Alex won't tell him the truth about their encounter. Louis finishes gathering up evidence and heads to the police station. When they hear the noise of the Democles, the system enters a quick reset, which caused them to go on the suicide spree and cause Louis to teleport. In San Lazaro, Goodman inserts Parks, the pyromaniac, while Anthony inserts the Doctor as their respective pawns. Anthony tries to warn Louis by inserting the writing in the rooms about not trusting Goodman, but sadly that backfires as the hospital's system forces Louis into staying in strict isolation. Anthony circumvents that by short-circuiting Louis' surroundings using the ship's sound. Freed from isolation, Louis heads to the sect's meeting. Goodman tried to keep Lewis in the delusion, but with the help of John's words, Lewis still carried on. Felicity followed Lewis through the grand finale, however, just to keep an eye on him for Goodman. Lewis, however, perseveres to the Isle of the Dead. That island is the backpoint entry into the Fate system. Lewis had to reconfigure the system by accepting reality. So by seeing all the alternative paths, and by accepting his fate, he manages to obtain the Eye of Horus, the Eye of Truth. The gemstone, however, was incomplete, and only Anna's segment allowed him to have a complete stone. By using the Eye of Horus on the statue of Goodman instead of Antony's, an impossibility relation would happen and the fate system would stop. However, an external trigger is still needed, so Anna used her cryotube to carry out the initial shock. Unfortunately, Anna's cryotube could not be restarted, and thus she drowned in the cryo liquid. After hearing the explanation, Lewis bursts in disbelief and anger and says that Anna must still be trapped inside the Fade, and that he can still bring her back. The doctors immediately carry him back to his room. The doctors, who are revealed to be what originally modeled Goodman and Antony, contemplate and argue about Lewis's fate, who will keep on going through simulations until he finds Anna and brings her back to the exit. They contemplate they must fix their mistake and ensure Lewis's psyche lives through this journey of denial. Until he wakes up.
Aunque saudade, ayer fui otro, cada segundo me roba a mí mismo, intranquilidad, donde el silencio deja entender ruido, el canto de los nervios. Qué saudade, cuando no sabemos lo que fuimos ayer, pero lo sentamos como un pensamiento, memoria de amor que a pesar es viejo.
Finally, I am back in my hometown, people! Hopefully the doctors are not gonna find me here, and now it's just time to relax, let the ocean's waves calm me down. Oh wait, I got a documentary to finish, people. Okay, hover over a little here, little, okay. Aren't you a dear? Okay. The game ends with a to be continued screen, but Mr. Lebouche confesses it was just added at the time since the direction was unknown. The theme of accepting reality is a favorite of mine and was done really well in this small pocket PC game. According to Mr. Lebouche, the remake was to fully expand on this concept. And you know, as I was playing Fade, I was imagining how every character and every background would have looked with Terramon's touch, how everyone would have been flashed out to be memorable. The special extra dialogue that can be exploited so much, the redesign of characters as the story gradually expands. Maybe new characters, something to make the game look better, anything. Fun fact, the entire video's background music contains nothing but 11/12's music composed by Dmitry Pachkov, Ida Landsberg, and the band Bye Bye Dubai. I would have loved to see them returning for episode 4, a be-all, end-all, accessible grand conclusion to the story of Fade. Or perhaps a hint for what would come next if that to-be-continued screen ever became a real thing. I hope that 11/12 receives a true remaster on the PC and Nintendo Switch, as I imagine both platforms would be ideal for the game. Maybe add voice acting for the game's characters to increase immersion. Anything is possible, really. So many things can be done with this much potential. You know, I created this game's documentary in hopes of letting Fade escape from fading into obscurity. To let this game become a reality. To live in a reality where everyone knows the story. I will meet you all again on the day where I wake up. I will wake up and I will find you all there. Here we go.
Ah, qué saudade. Ayer fui otro. Cada segundo me roba a mí mismo. Intranquilidad. Donde el silencio deja entender ruido. El canto de los nervios. Ah, qué saudade. Cuando no sabemos lo que fuimos ayer, pero lo sentamos como un pensamiento, memoria de amor que acusa a los viejos. Ayer fui otro. Ahora soy otro, no me acuerdo quién fui ayer. Ahora soy otro, no me acuerdo quién fui ayer. Ahora soy otro, no me acuerdo quién fui ayer. Ahora soy otro, no me acuerdo.
My shoes are wet.